Hey friends, my name is Andy and I make music as Raphah, Vesperglow and Ambient. So here is the main pedal board, and that's situated just to the right of my desk where I have my screen, my computer, my studio monitors and laptop. So it's all within easy reach, just a swivel of a chair, and I have access to all the pedals, and they are permanently set up as you can see, although I do play around with the configuration from time to time. In order to show you how it's all put together and to follow the signal chain, I'm actually going to come down below the main pedal board, and on the floor I have 3 pedals which are the only ones that I operate with my feet. And prior to that, it's plugged into a guitar, one of a few that I have, but this is my preferred electric guitar. It's my Fender US Strat. That goes straight into a volume pedal, which I find very useful for making swells, controlling volume as I'm using the pedal board. So that's the Dunlop Mini. That then goes into the Gamechanger Plus sustain pedal. Slightly unusual for a guitar pedal, but absolutely magical for creating ambient music, because it acts a bit like a piano sustain pedal in that once you've played a chord or a note, you can use the pedal then to sustain that note, and there's various parameters you can use to do that with. So that's really nice for creating drones and enhancing the swells that I've created with the volume pedal. That then goes into this TC Electronic Ditto, which is a very simple looping pedal. Now I have that at the beginning of the signal chain, because if I want to input a particular loop that I want to then play with the entire pedal board, that's where I'll put that one in. From there, we then jump up to the main pedal board. Now this is actually split into 2. So on the left-hand side here, the part of the pedal board you can see there, that's quite a traditional setup. There's not many sort of flowery effects or any sort of boutique-y pedals particularly. And this one actually breaks away from the main board, which I'll explain shortly. Here, from the floor pedal board, I'll go straight into the Universal Audio 1176 compressor, which is a really clean, lovely, effective compressor. So that just helps to clean up that signal initially. That then goes straight into the Triumph Overdrive. I don't use that a huge amount, and if I do, it's fairly subtle, just to give a bit of texture and a bit of crunch to the signal, depending on what I want to do up front. Those are both mono pedals, and from there, the pedal board then splits off out the back here. So there's a mono signal that comes out and into the second section of the pedal board. If I just zoom back a little bit, that shows you the second portion of the board, which can stand alone. And this is where we have more of the sort of weird and wonderful effects where you can really get creative. So that mono signal goes into the Chroma console by Hologram Electronics. This is a bit of a crazy pedal. It's a multi-effects, it's a box of tricks, and there's so much you can do with that. I'm not going to go into detail on any of these pedals particularly, because there's lots of YouTube videos and information about what they are and how they work. But basically, there's loads of different types of effects you can use. You can play with the character and the movement, the diffusion, the texture. So right up front in the signal chain, you could put in either just some basic compression or some fuzz, or if you want a bit of space effects or anything like that, you can add that in here. That then goes into this pedal here, which I have to say is one of my favorite. It doesn't actually create any sound, which is perhaps slightly counterintuitive, but it's a signal blender. So it means I can split the signal of the board. So what happens here is it takes the signal from the Chroma console and it splits it into 2, an A and a B channel. So we've got an A channel down here, and there's an independent volume control for that one. Now, the A part of the signal chain goes into my little collection of Chase Bliss pedals. First up, we've got the Generation Loss, the Mark II. That's a tape emulator basically, so it emulates lots of different types of cassette tape, VHS, and so on. Love that pedal because it's brilliant just for creating a bit of movement, some lo-fi effect, some tape effect. That then feeds straight into the Chase Bliss Lost and Found. That's a little bit like the Chroma console in that it's kind of a multi-effect pedal. There's lots of different weird and wonderful sounds you can make with it. So I tend to use that in a fairly subtle way. By the way, all these three are stereo pedals, so it jumps from a mono signal into the stereo blender, and then everything becomes stereo. Then it goes into the mood pedal, which it's a close tie between this and the Microcosm, but I think the mood just takes it as my favourite pedal on this board, just because it's so creative, particularly for ambient music. And I still haven't plumbed the depths of everything it can do, but if you've used it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't used it and you're into making ambient music particularly, it's absolute magic. I absolutely love this pedal, and it probably appears on every track that I make. So there's lots of different things you can do with that. Particularly, it's good for making pads. It has a micro looper built into it, and it will take a sample of what you've played, and you can do some crazy stuff with it, particularly using the clock dial in the middle. You can slow things up, speed them down, and have things sustaining and repeating and glitching and all sorts of wonderful sonic goodness. That then comes into the Strymon Volate, or Volante, not quite sure what the correct way of saying it is. Nevertheless, this is, as it says below there, magnetic tape echo. So it's kind of a delay machine, but it's quite a vintage sound. So in a similar way to the Gen Loss, you can add some sort of tapey type sounds. You can play around with the delays. There's lots of functions on here to add space and delay to the signal. So from there, that goes back into our signal stereo blender. That one's made by Old Blood Noise, just in case you wanted to know who makes that one, as a stereo signal. And so I'll then be able to control the volume of that with the fader here, or I can switch it off altogether. So often what I'll do is have some kind of loop running primarily through the mood pedal, which I'll then process on the Volante using the other two sometimes as well. So that's A channel. The B channel then comes down over here to the Microcosm, also by Hologram Electronics. Again, a close run thing with the mood, one of my favourite pedals for creating ambient soundscapes, getting creative. It's got a built-in looper as well. It's much longer than the mood, so you can have sort of a loop going on in the background. I won't say much more about that then, again, because there's so much information on this pedal on YouTube, but would highly, highly recommend it if you are making ambient music. That then goes into the old classic combo of the Strymon Timeline, which is a delay pedal with a ridiculous number of parameters that you can change, so I'll use that to various extents. And then into the Strymon Big Sky, which is the legendary legendary reverb pedal. Again, absolutely love the quality, the sound of this pedal, and all the different reverbs you can add to it. I've created some of my own presets here, so we've got some Raphah specific reverb presets, which I tend to default to, but there's so many things on there you can play with. That goes back into the old signal stereo blender on channel B. So again, I can fade that in and out. I can control that. So what I will tend to do on this pedal, particularly if I'm doing sort of a pad or I'm doing one of my ambient sketches, so I can have two things circulating at the same time and layer up those pads and those textures. I'll have one loop going through channel A, one loop going through channel B, and then I'll fade them in and out and blend them in with the stereo blender. That I can then take a stereo feed from there, comes out the back of the pedal board and back in to our breakaway pedal board, and that comes straight into the Halo. So this is by Keeley Electronics. Andy Timmons, who's a unbelievably good guitarist, worked with them to create this echo delay pedal. I'm not sure I really need this. In fact, it's one I'm considering taking off the pedal board and perhaps even selling on. It's a nice to have, but I've got so many delays and space effects on my other board, I'm not sure I actually need it. But I do sometimes add some of that in if I want a bit of extra delay, or perhaps sort of a polyrhythmic delay, combining with the other two delay pedals I've got on the other board. But perhaps a bit surplus to requirements, perhaps a bit overindulgent. However, if I was to break this pedal board away, because it does stand on its own, it's good to have that delay on there. So I'm in a bit of a dilemma as to what to do with that at the moment, but it is a great pedal. That comes out of there into the Strymon Cloudburst, which is just an awesome pedal. It's not just a reverb, it's really good at creating orchestral string sounding pads and reverb. If you've used it or heard it, you'll know what I mean. And perhaps at some point I'll give a demonstration just of this because it's such a unique pedal. But I love this one just to add a bit of fullness to the sound sometimes, or sometimes I'll use it just on its own, perhaps with one other pedal, because it creates such incredible sound just on its own. That stereo signal then goes into my Line 6 HX Stomp. Now this on its own can create some wonderful sounds because it's a multi-effects pedal, it's an amp modeler, it's ridiculously capable. However, I've kind of defaulted just to using it as an amp emulator. Amp emulator, that's what I'm looking for. And you'll see on there F Twin Stereo. My favourite amp of all time is the Fender Twin, so I've created my own preset to try and replicate the sound of a Fender Twin, because unfortunately I don't have one anymore. I used to have it, it was absolutely incredible, but too big, too loud, and I needed the money, so I ended up selling it. I do regret that to an extent, but this creates a close enough sound. And there's so many things you can do with this HX Stomp. You could use it as an ambient pedal just on its own, but that's what I currently use for that. And then at the end of the chain, in fact I've done that the wrong way around, the signal goes into here first, but never mind, it goes into my NUX dual loop stereo. So this is another looper that I can use at the end of the chain, I can feed signals into, and this is a really great looper because you can have a couple of different loops at the same time. You can also split it so that you move from one loop to another. You can do sort of a verse chorus arrangement. You can have multiple different loops. It's very powerful. It's got a drum machine inside, which I tend not to use because ambient doesn't really have many drums. But again, a very capable, very powerful pedal. I'm still getting used to using this because it's relatively new. So just to rewind a bit, it goes into there, then it goes into the Line 6 HX Stomp. And you may notice I've got a couple of extra sort of foot switches. So here, this is to control the HX Stomp. It just means I can move up and down on the various presets a bit more easily, particularly if I'm operating it by foot or playing live anywhere, which unfortunately doesn't happen much anymore, but that's the option to do that. And then I've got a couple here. This is to control the halo and this one's to control the cloudburst. Just again, so I don't have to mess about holding buttons down and doing multiple switches at the same time. I can just hit one switch to change presets. And that's pretty much it. I forgot to mention at the beginning, I actually start off with a tuner, the all-important tuner. And that's just the TC Electronic Polytune, which is inexpensive, but very good, very accurate, and very readable. If I want to break away this pedal board and just use this one on its own, at the back of the pedal board, I just unplug the mono and I unplug the two stereo, and I use a little patch cable just to basically patch it into itself. So instead of the distortion Triumph going into the big pedal board, it jumps straight from there into the halo, and that completes the loop for this particular board. So it's quite easy to break this one away. And then this one can stand alone as well. I can go straight out of that into either an amp or into my DAW via the interface, do some recording. So that's the tour of the pedal board. It's quite extensive. I think it's probably actually a bit too much. And just to say, I never use all of the pedals at the same time. I have tried it, but it's an absolute mess. There perhaps is a way of doing that, but I haven't figured it out. Some people might look at that and go, that's overkill. Why do you need so many pedals, particularly all set up all at the same time? The answer to that would be, I don't ever use them all at the same time. And if you've seen some of my ambient sketch videos, you'll also see that I'll often just pick off a pedal or two and use them on their own, just to create sounds. It's set up this way really just for ease of use. It saves me having to make too many decisions about what pedal I'm going to use, how I'm going to use them, how I'm going to configure them. Everything's set up and ready to go. They're not sitting on a shelf gathering dust. So with the flick of the power switch, everything's accessible and available. And it helps me just in that workflow to be creative, to play around with some of the settings. I'm pretty familiar with how all the pedals work and which ones work best together. And so that's how it's currently set up. I will probably reconfigure this at some point in the next few months. Again, just to try and create some more creative ideas, because you get stuck in a bit of a rut. The same signal path, the same sound, so by mixing it up a bit, I'll hopefully unlock a bit more creativity. That's the pedal board in its entirety. Oh, I missed this one down here, which is the Walrus Slo pedal. Lovely sounding reverb. It's not actually connected up at the moment. I took it off because I felt I had too many reverbs. It's good enough and use it as a standalone pedal, either to process synth sounds or other things that I'm doing as I'm creating music. As ever, if you want to follow what I'm doing, the music I'm making, the releases I'm putting out, and be part of this community of musicians and music lovers, please do sign up to my mailing list. Feel free to sign up to the channel, and it'd be great to keep in touch and to connect with you over the music. So thanks very much again, and hope to see you soon. Bye.